Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got a great guest. Her name is Kellyn Legath. She's a relationship coach. And we're going to be talking about how anxiety impacts dating and relationships, or if you are an anxious person, how that might affect yourself in the world of dating. So very warm welcome to you, Kellyn.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and so excited to have this conversation.
And I think it's quite a common thing, I think, today for people to be quite anxious about dating, isn't it? And I'd be interested to know, to start with, what actually led you to sort of be an expert around this particular area of relationships.
Sure. I, looking back on all of my relationships, probably starting as young as in middle school, my middle school self being so anxious, being so wanting to be chosen, that was huge from the beginning, from when I started dating. And as I moved through my adolescence, as I went through college and then was dating in my 20s and in my early 30s, it became so, such a veil in a way that I was so anxious about my own experience. I wasn't able to discern around who the partner I was choosing or wanted to be with, right? And I was chasing a lot of unavailable people, and I was always making it about me, right? I just had such an anxious dating experience as I was growing up, and like I said, into my 20s. And finally, for me, and something that always comes out when I'm working with clients is that there's a feeling that there's something wrong with you. You're like, why am I feeling this way? Why do I start to spiral and go down this rabbit hole? And it's always, for me, it finally was like, I need help. I need the tools that are going to help me navigate these things in a way that allows me to be like, okay, what's going on here? And how can I deal with it? How can I soothe myself? How can I make better decisions? So for me, it was always about finding the tools. And then when I found them, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody needs this. There are so many people in dating that are feeling lost and needing help and needing tools.
Absolutely. And I think quite often we don't actually realize there is help out there, for one. Also, sometimes we don't necessarily have the awareness to be aware of how we're self-sabotaging our own dating experiences, are we?
Oh my gosh, that's awareness is the biggest thing, right? So many of us, and I think at the beginning of my dating experiences, I always just felt like, oh, this is just happening to me. I don't know why. It's just something that I'm experiencing. And then when the awareness started to kick in, hold on, this is a pattern. You start to see your own patterns of, oh, this happened again. You start to see it repeat and repeat. That's when sort of the awareness begins to kick in, and
you realize that you're the common denominator in it all.
Totally, which is really hard to look at, right? It's really hard to face.
Yeah, because it's so easy sometimes, isn't it, to point the finger at the other person and think it's them and they're to blame. And obviously there are situations where they're adding their own baggage into the equation, but we have to also equally realize that we've got our own part to play.
1,000%. And I see that with dating, with the clients I talk to, with the way people talk on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, when people are sharing their dating experiences, it's often, this person did this and it caused me to feel this way, right? And it's, that's valid. The feelings that anyone has in their experiences are so valid, but it oftentimes becomes very disempowering, right? It's I'm at the mercy of how they're responding to me. And that can be very detrimental to how you feel and trigger the anxiety to a whole nother level, right?
Yeah, and I don't think we realize sometimes as well, how often we do give our power away, because if we do allow ourselves to react or respond in that way without sort of getting help to, or the tools to sort of sort that out, we're actually allowing that person or those people previous to have power over us and, negatively impact our life going forward.
100%. And that negative impact, right? When it's almost like doubling down in the negativity, right? Because you're already anxious, you're worried, and your brain is doing emotional jumping jacks a little bit, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Are they going to call me? Am I going to get the text? Do they like me? Am I this enough? Am I that enough? All the story that sort of comes up. And then, being able to take a step back and sit with that discomfort is one thing. But then when you're really emotionally affected by how someone's responding to you, that's like getting hit by another wave, right? A different wave of emotion that you're like, oh, now I'm rejected and I have to process through that. Or now I'm disappointed and now I have to process through that. So it's almost like doubling down emotionally.
Absolutely. And I try my best to keep educating people about this perception of rejection, because for me, if we can change that and feel like it's protection rather than rejection, they're not for you, basically.
Oh my gosh.
And they're doing you a favor by not carrying on that particular relationship, because if they're not for you, they're going to be leaving you then free to find the person that is for you.
Oh my gosh, that I hope whoever's listening really heard what you just said. There's so much in that. And I think that was something that helped me up level. When it finally clicked, what you just said, when that finally clicked for me, I was like, oh, that's it. That's I'm being cut loose. I remember I was working with somebody at the time, and he said that to me. He's like, you're being cut loose. That was not for you, and I just had this sense of relief, like, oh, okay, if you can stay in that beautiful, sometimes scary place of being like something more aligned is coming. I'm very careful about saying something better, because I think we're in this dating culture right now where everyone's like, oh, I can do better and I can do better, right? So I don't want it to be about that, but more aligned, more for you. If you can stay in that and be like, okay, this wasn't for me. If it was, it wouldn't have gone, right? Nothing
Exactly.
meant for you can pass you by.
Exactly. And it's the same, I think, even in, regarding work and jobs, I have that same attitude. So, if you go for an interview, for example, and you don't get the job, then I will think, well, if not that, then something better. And it's the same in our relationships.
Oh my gosh, 100%. And it's so funny that you say that. I often, when I'm talking to clients about dating, the career stuff, often they're so intertwined. I find myself dancing back and forth between, okay, but let's think about that in the lens of your job, and they're such mirrors. Career and relationship I always think that there's a lot of parallels if you can start to open that up and see that.
Absolutely. So what did anxiety look like to you? How was that showing up for you, to give people examples of what you're talking about when it comes to anxiety?
Yeah, I think early in my dating experiences, it was very much a feeling of like before the date, right? Like it was already starting to reel. It was already starting to be like, I could feel almost like the nervousness of the sweaty palms and oh my gosh, do I look okay? And are they going to like me? That sort of mindset. I was never in the empowered place of I wonder if I'm going to like them. I wonder if they're going to be what I need. It was always outward facing. I hope they like me. I hope this works out. I was so in this wounded place of like wanting to be desired and wanting to be chosen was a huge thing for me. So, that pre-date anxiety was there, right? Always reeling. And then when I got to the date, again, it wasn't me sitting in my spine, witnessing what was going on, witnessing the conversation. It was so much, how can I be likable? How can I be more likable? How can I be desirable from this man and this person? And that was a huge part of it.
So did it feel like you were trying to sell yourself to make them like you?
A little bit. It was very much like, oh, I can't show all my cards. I can't just like be who I am and, show up authentically. It was always like, okay, let me find out what they like so I can adjust and adapt and be what they are looking for. Which I was selling parts of myself really just to fit in, to be chosen.
Absolutely. And quite often, because my thing is about teaching people about how masculine and feminine energy works in the context of relationships. The man wants to take the lead. The man wants to be the one that chases and pursues you. So if you make it too easy for him, if you're always trying to fit in around his schedule and drop everything to be for him, that's not actually attractive to him.
Totally, which I love that you're teaching that. That is so interesting. I was absolutely like, they say too available, but I was the person that as soon as I was getting the text message the day after the date, I was responding right away. I was like waiting with bated breath, please text me, and you're exactly right. I love that lens of it, of just it's desperation, and a lot of desperation energy, I think.
Yeah, and neediness. And I think, we could probably at some points in our relationship history, whether it's with partners or anybody else, I've been like that, and
Sure.
have become almost obsessive about wanting that other person to like us. So I get it. I
Yeah,
understand
yeah.
it. And yeah, it's a thing, definitely. It's a definite thing that once we've done our healing and we can just not give a damn, almost about, what the other person thinks about us, then actually that's what's attractive.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think what you just touched on, the obsessiveness, right? When you're in that sort of like obsessiveness, it's not just about you and that person. It becomes like, after like talking about the anxiety, when I would leave a date and I wouldn't get a text right away, I'd be like, oh, I'd be obsessing over the things I said. Should I have worn something different? Should I have said something different? Should I kind of trying to control the situation by annihilating and like protecting myself? Obviously, in retrospect, I'm seeing this, but I was protecting myself by being like, oh, let me figure out what the thing is that made this person not contact me or not ask for a second date or not do X, Y, and Z. So I became like obsessive with analyzing how I was showing up, but not in the way that I was like, oh, am I being myself? It was more self-critical, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to benefit so many people listening to this because, and you don't want to, if you are listening to this, beat yourself up if you can identify with being this way, because as I say, I think we can all stick our hands up and say we've had phases of it ourselves in certain relationships. So it's just educating people to become aware that, it's not the healthiest thing when it comes to managing or attracting a relationship, in terms of, well, any sort of relationship, whether that's an intimate partner or otherwise, is it?
Oh, 100%, 100%. It's, I love that you said that. It's not, we go through this, right? I really believe that we have to learn the lessons that we need to learn to get us back to our true, authentic selves. And sometimes those lessons, especially in love, can be incredibly painful. Just knowing that there's nothing wrong with you. I can't say that enough, that just because you're facing this and seeing this, it doesn't mean that you're flawed or unlovable. It's that there's unconscious patterns that, need to be unwound and taken, have someone lift the lid and kind of look under and say, what's going on here?
Yeah, and we don't know what we don't know until we do.
Oh, so true. I'm always saying that. I love that. Yeah. How would you know? How would you know? And hindsight truly is 2020.
Yeah, and so for you, how are you now when it comes to relationships? What lessons did you learn?
Yeah. You know, it's so different for me. Sometimes when I think about that person who was dating even 2 years ago, I I hold her so closely and I have so much compassion for her because, it was well-intentioned, wanting to be loved is a beautiful thing. I am just I dedicated so much time to myself to sit in and understand what was going on. both understanding my emotions and how to soothe myself. And that's a huge thing, right? Just being able to not try to outsource my discomfort by double texting a man, right? Or just to process, oh gosh, I feel like I'm being rejected, and to sit with it instead of trying harder, right? That was a huge transformation for me. The other thing was a true dedication to understanding who I am and the value that I bring. What I realized was that I just had such a terrible relationship with myself. The thoughts that I had about myself were quite negative, and I really saw myself as sort of less than. So to rewrite that, I dedicated myself to, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. I think it was really the last pretty serious relationship I had. I was very anxious. And I remember there was a time when something felt off, and I just was like, something's not right here, It was, and I just kept bringing it back to me. I'm like, it's my anxiety. I'm just anxious. I'm just worried. And it was with somebody who was seemingly a safe person in the way that he was affirming me. He was affirming me. He was constantly saying, I think you're really beautiful. I think you're really smart. I think you're really funny. He was telling me all the things that I wanted to hear. And yet something seemed off. And when it ended, I finally was like, oh my gosh, that wasn't anxiety. That was my intuition. But I couldn't get to my intuition because the anxiety was standing in front of it. And that I had such a breakthrough after that.
Yeah, because sometimes the voice in our head is louder than the smaller voice of our intuition, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, always. Until you're able to get to that next level, right?
Yeah. And, usually we do see in hindsight, don't we? It's always in hindsight where, there was consistent red flags that we can now look on and think, yeah, oh my.
Yeah. You know what?
Why didn't I recognize it before or listen to myself when those red flags were waving?
Oh my gosh, it's like, oh, we put our sunglasses on, or our big hats, and we look the other way. But I remember, I think in particular with this person, I'll share, I remember he said something like, I don't want to owe anyone anything, and I don't want anyone to owe me anything. And I remember he said it in the moment, and I was like, oh, okay. And the next night I went home, and I was like, I'm feeling myself being really anxious. And now when I think back, I'm like, oh my gosh, Kel, why would you first of all, not question that? Like, tell me more about that. What do you mean? Are you not looking for a relationship? Because we had already established something. But also just checking in with myself and being like, does that feel right to me? Does it feel right that this person says he doesn't have the capacity to owe anyone anything, whatever that meant, but it was that sort of, I was like, this is a red flag. This is something to be investigated because it didn't feel right.
Yeah. And that feeling literally is a message to yourself, isn't it? That you need to address.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And being able to tune into that's where the work is, right? Being able to tune into those messages and pay attention to them, because most of what I think people are doing is batting those away,
In terms of any tools that you think could be useful to share, would you share something with the audience that you found particularly beneficial as an exercise or a tool that they could implement straight away?
Yeah. I go back again to especially someone with intense anxiety, right? I think the best tool that you can use is understanding that your emotions they're not there to hurt you. Opening up to the emotion and sitting with the anxiety it sounds counterintuitive, because people are listening are probably like, I don't want to be anxious. I'm not going to sit with the anxiety. That sounds crazy, right? But understanding that anxiety is not there to hurt you, the awareness, right? When you're suddenly like, I feel anxiety, most of us intellectualize it, right? We say it, we name it, and then move on. I'm anxious, I'm going on this date, but it's taking that extra 5 minutes to be like, I'm anxious. Where is this showing up in my body? Is it my throat feels closed? Is it that my heart is beating really fast? Is it my palms are sweating? Being able to sit with it and then say, what am I thinking that's making me feel this anxious? and just the awareness, having the awareness, I would say is, half the battle of understanding this thought is probably something like, oh, I want it to go really well, or I hope that they like me. And then you can sort of kind of look at your thoughts and question them and say, well, what if I want to like them, right? I want to make sure I like them. So being in that place of mindfulness, getting to question your thought, but you're not going to be able to just jump and question your thoughts when your anxiety is taking over, right? Anxiety can feel like such a heavy coat, over your entire experience.
Absolutely, it can. And thank you for sharing that. It's really good and really useful, I'm sure, to anybody that might be listening that might be able to identify. Because, as I said earlier on, maybe some people have been experiencing these sorts of types of feelings and not known, that their anxiety is actually getting in the way, and how to cope and start to deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll give you one other tool is really for me was writing down what I was looking for. In using like a daydreamer mindset, a future self mindset. I'm like, what am I looking for? What are the things that I remember right sort of when I was transitioning from being so anxious to just being a secure dater. I finally was like, what are the things that are absolute no's for me? Somebody that doesn't want a serious relationship, great. I can go on the date and they'll tell me that and we can still have a fine date, but that's an absolute no. And getting that down on paper for me, I think was one of the most empowering and impactful things that I started to do. Really saying, okay, I'm saying that I don't want this thing, but what am I accepting? And really tracking the difference between the two. That was so huge when I started, moving from anxious to secure.
I love that. I love that you just said that, because quite often we are willing to accept things that we haven't or wouldn't put on that paper, aren't we? Because we're in that needy, desperate, anxious state.
Yeah. And to what we're saying, when you're in that state, you can't see clearly. It's like all you're seeing, I tell clients all the time, the experience that you're having will be totally masked by this anxiety. So, to give yourself a sort of North Star, it's almost like rooting down a little bit and to check in with yourself and be like, wait a second, I said that I don't want anybody who does XYZ. And to hold yourself accountable in that is great. And also if you're writing it down and then accepting it, it's like, great, let's take a look at that. Is it because it's something that is actually not that important to me that I thought it is, or am I sacrificing myself and what I really want, and my deservingness? So it's either way, there's a lesson in it, right?
Absolutely. And I think also that if I might sort of throw a spanner in the works here, one thing that I wasn't looking for in a guy was anybody with any sort of history of drinking heavily. And I have to say that I did with my ex-partner, who I was with for 10 years. He was a heavy drinker to the point where he consciously knew he was an alcoholic. But in that relationship, I said right at the start, this isn't what I'm looking for. I don't want to be with a man that's a heavy drinker. But I didn't make it about him. I just said with a man, because I'm somebody that's wanting to live a long, healthy life, and I want a partner that's going to match that and be a good match for that. And he himself decided to quit, and literally within weeks of us dating, without any pressure from me, because he was so enamored with the relationship and myself, decided that he was going to take that step to be sober, and he was for the whole of our relation, and still is, and 14 years later. So although we're not together anymore, he still remains sober, but I think was inspired because of my stance on it, and because he'd fallen in love basically.
I love that. How beautiful. I think I've really cultivated this mindset that everybody that comes in and everybody that exits is a gift. They're showing you something in one way or another, whether the relationship lasts, is long lasting, or it ends in a week, or it ends in a day. There's always something that we're giving to each other. And I think that mindset has also given me a more relaxed stance on dating. I'm so much more curious about, oh, what is this person gonna unveil to me? And not in a way that I'm like using them or anything like that, but just in a way that I'm very open. I'm open to the experience, and I'm like, okay, they're here for a reason, and I'm in their life for a reason. So what is that reason going to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I think
great.
there sometimes needs to be some flexibility about what you do want and what you don't want, but certainly don't compromise on what you do want when you're in a relationship. If somebody's displaying such a habit such as that you don't want in a relationship, be prepared to rock the boat and say that this isn't what I want, from a man in my relationship.
Yeah. And I think to that too, especially if someone's listening and they're kind of feeling like, I don't know what I want, or, I haven't dated a ton, it's also really beneficial to break it down into categories. Nothing needs to be set in stone. You can move things around, but here are the absolute, I don't want this in a relationship. I don't want someone that's a heavy drinker. I don't want someone that's heavy into drug use, whatever it is. And then sort of have a middle section of, hey, these are things that I think that I don't want. I'm not sure if it's a deal breaker for me. I'm not, and these are the things that I absolutely want, and sort of experimenting with what those things are. Because I do think, like you said, it's a lot of, people say, oh my gosh, I want somebody that's 6'5", and
Yeah.
it's like, well, why?
And in 200 grand a year, that's got massive muscles and
right. And
they might treat you really horribly.
yeah, totally. And it's like, why do you really want that? So getting down to the root of what you want and why you want it is, is the next layer of it.
Yeah. And sort of not getting bogged down with too many physical characteristics such as height or or income necessarily, because you could find a really great guy that's probably not that ideal height or on that ideal income, but he could treat you beautifully, and you could meet somebody else that does fit that criteria that would treat you like dirt.
Oh, that's so true. There's a baseline for everything. Of course, want to be attracted to somebody, but there's so much deeper than obviously appearance, and focusing on those root things, those really meaningful things, is just so important.
Absolutely. So for me now, what I'd really like to find out, Kellyn, is what is your best contact information for anybody that would like to connect with you?
Yeah, my website is daydreamercoaching.com. I'm also on Instagram at Daydreamer Coaching. So you can find me on there. You can DM me. There's also, plenty of ways on my website to get in touch with me. I have free consultations for anyone that's interested in kind of exploring how I coach and just getting a little taste of it. I think when people move into working with a coach, they're always like, what is this going to be about? How is it different than therapy? What does it look like? So I love to offer that to people just to get a taste. And that's the best way.
Excellent. So any final words around this topic that we've been discussing, I should say, around how anxiety impacts dating and relationships before we close the episode?
Yeah, I think if there's anything that I leave people with, it's just, anxiety is not your final resting place. If you're experiencing dating in relationships right now, in dating, it doesn't have to be that way forever. I'm proof of that. There are people, there are resources, there are tools that will help you overcome this. And dating should be fun. Dating can be such a beautiful experience, and finding love is a beautiful thing. So, don't be afraid to ask for help when it's time.
Excellent. Love that. Thank you so much, Kellyn. It's been a delight talking to you today.
Thank you. Same to you. This was such a beautiful conversation. I loved it.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's lyn@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.